Hey everybody, welcome back. Let's take this crate that we modeled previously and throw it into Substance. So a few things we need to do here are apply some materials. So actually we need to unwrap it first. So under UV editing, I'm not going to lie, I cheated. I just did automatic for demo purposes. But what you're really going to have to do for this is, some of these actually are okay. Let me go to UV shell. You have to unwrap this using those same methods that we used previously. So you can see some of those unwraps. Okay, so a lot of planar projection in here. Actually, I could probably unfold this whole piece so I didn't have all of this. Okay, so the automatic is never a good method, to be honest. I mean, you can't really use it. The only reason I used it was because for demo purposes, because the unwrapping process does take a while. But let me sew some of this back together. So cut and sew. Let's sew this, and we'll do an unfold. So it's that same thing that we've been doing. So let's do UV shell. So now I have one big UV shell. Hopefully I left one seam. I did. Then I can unfold that. So this is what we should be doing. Okay. So my UVs, and some of you running into this issue, if you rotate this just a little bit and then do straighten UVs, then it works out really, really well. So sometimes it just needs that extra bit of rotation there. And then actually, I think, let's check my checkers. Yep, those are pretty good. Those are the sides. And actually something is not right here, I don't think. Something looks off. Let me turn off those checkers. Oh, let me see. I want to go to face mode. Yeah, it's okay. I wanted to make sure that all those faces weren't the same size, so everything looks good there. So you do have to use that same method to get this done. The automatic is not good because of stuff like this. I don't even know what that is. Well, that's the interior. Yeah, that's not going to work. So the only reason that I was able to use that automatic is because for demo, because I didn't want to, we've already done UVs, so that's not what this video is about. But you need to do proper UV, proper unwrapping of these objects. So again, for demo purposes like this, it doesn't work at all. I got to use that same cylindrical method that we used previously, unfold that and use those methods. This is terrible. We can't use this. This is going to look, it's actually going to show, and I'll show you why, because I'm going to leave it like this, and I'll show you why we can't use automatic. So I'm going to do that now for this. I did fix one piece, but all the UVs are done, and I just clicked automatic, but I want to show you why those don't work, so you can't use those. Okay, so other than that, we're pretty much done with this. Let's go back to my classic. Let's assign some materials to this. So let's right-click and hold. Assign new material. Let's do blend. Let's call this... We need to go to blend. Actually, we can copy that name. Create top. And then just paste that in there if we want. Let's make this red. Let's do the bottom. I can do create. It's just create. So let's do right-click. Let's do assign new material. Blend, create. Let's do the pipes, right click. Oops, I forgot to change the color. You don't actually have to change the color. I don't think you do, but it's a good habit. So, whoa, if you can't find your shader over here, if you just do edit, delete by type, history, your shader will come up right away. So your material there, sorry, your material will pop up. Let's do that again, right click and hold, assign new material, blend. This is pipe up. And let's change the color of that as well. Done. Last but not least, pipe down, pipe down. Assign right click, assign new material, blend. I usually use the blend or Lambert. I like to use blend because the default shader in here is Lambert, then I never get confused. So let's select everything, edit, delete by type history, modify, freeze transforms. This thing's ready to go. So let's go ahead and export it. Let's select the whole thing, everything. File, export. This is all that's in here. So I could do export all or export selection. And actually one thing that we need to do to make sure it's on is under Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, do a search for FBX and make sure everything's loaded and auto-loaded there. Okay, so file, export selection, everything's selected. Whoa! It's over here somewhere. I have my crate underscore substance. This is going to substance. The defaults are fine for here. Export selection. I'm going to replace mine. I already did one. All right, let's go ahead and boot up Substance Painter. So Substance Painter is booting up. I have the 2020 version. Any version of Substance will work. Some of the older versions run on older or slower computers, so sometimes you need to do those versions as well. So the 2020 is like kind of a beast. It does need a lot of, you need a gaming machine to run it. But let's do file. We're not going to do open. Open is to open a Substance Painter file. So we don't have any of those. So we're going to do file new. I'm going to bump this up to 2048. The PBR metallic roughness is fine. There is a setting here that's been added in this new version for UDIMs. Basically, you can paint across multiple texture sets seamlessly. Ooh, it's so cool. This just came out, so we're not quite using that yet, but we'll talk about that in a later video. Let's select my file, create sub. I think I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. This will come in pretty much no problem. I need to reset my workspace here. Let's do window, reset UI. And I usually like to have my 3D space over here. So I'm going to switch those right here. I can do 3D, 2D only, or 2D, 3D in this workspace. So you can do perspective, orthographic. You can change these however you want. And I think the default is this the default? Let me try and reset one more time. Okay, let me reset that. Okay, so the default is, sorry, my shortcut 4, I didn't know that was green. That's my I'm pausing and unpausing. Sorry. F4 is my shortcut to pause in OBS, my recording software, but it's also to switch between 2D and 3D. So my video just got really weird there for a second. Sorry about that. But this is the default here. So this is everything. So everything's kind of in there, pretty much ready to go. Remember, Alt, left mouse click, center mouse click, and right mouse click to do all of the viewport navigation tools. And then everything looks good over here. So the thing that we need to do first, before we do anything, before we go down to Smart Materials and try and drag these up to test things, we need to bake the mesh maps. So under Texture Set Settings, my size is 2048. Near the bottom middle, you'll see Bake Mesh Maps. If you forget this step, Substance Painter doesn't work. So don't forget this step. So Bake Mesh Maps. The only things that we need to change... Okay, what I want to have on for this is, I'm going to do that. Actually, I don't even need to touch any of this, but let's go ahead and do 2048. That's the only thing we have to change here. And then an ID, we want to switch. By default, in older version, it actually used to go to vertex color, but make sure this is on material color. And now that's the new default, or they switched it, but this is just here automatically. So I actually don't have to hit apply to all, because it's going to apply it to all those automatically. And again, there's another feature down here. It used to say bake all texture sets, and in the new 2020 update, it says bake selected texture sets. But you can see I have 28 textures being baked for this. So I'm just going to do bake selected, and it's going to bake everything. All right, let's do it. So make sure everything else is right. Let's just go double check. Yep, 2048. In this portion here, this is for baking low resolution mesh on a high poly mesh, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And the rest of these we don't really even need to touch. So let's go ahead and bake selected maps. And you'll know that it's working during this stage because you can actually see it baking on all the objects. So I know that it's working on all the objects because every object, the mesh maps must be baked. So all those mesh maps must be baked on all the objects. Okay, this is done. Hit OK. To double check this, I can hit B as in Brad, and I can cycle through these. So what I'm cycling through here is the mesh maps, the ones that we just made, and you can actually see they're over here as well. But B will cycle through those in the viewport. So we've talked about these before, but I have my ID map. This is the color ID map that I made that pulled over. This is the ambient occlusion map. That's generated, so just kind of like this soft lighting map that's generated automatically. I'm going to keep curvature map. This is used as well, and this is actually what we'll kind of look at in a second. Let's keep going. Position, thickness. It looks like this is going through here, but I don't think that's going to make an issue. Normal map, world space normal, and back around the horn. So let's just hit M as in material to go back to that default material. And all of those are listed here if you forget those shortcuts. So material is the default, and then all the mesh maps here. So we're working on material, so we'll just go to material. Your shortcuts are Alt, left mouse click to orbit, center mouse wheel to pan, and to dolly in and out is Alt, right mouse click. So Alt, and then all of the mouse buttons in order. All right, those are done. So let's go check out the layers. What I like to do is let's just test this out. So we can go to Smart Materials down here. And let's test one of these out. I'm going to do this steel painted. I'm just going to drag and drop this onto my object. Hey, that looks pretty good already. That looks nice. Pretty happy with that. Okay, let's look at steel painted. I can try another one or just use steel painted kind of for everything if I want. So it's the steel painted green. I'm just going to drag it on top of all of this. Cool. And you will see one of the errors that I'm getting from the unfold right here. So this is from the unfold error, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure, but because the unfold was so sloppy, I think that's why we're getting some of those errors within the unfold. So actually this looks pretty decent. Now if I want to test a different material, Smart Material, I can just drag and drop that on top. The one thing we do have to take note of that is adding new folders here. So the Smart Materials are nice because they are just in folders. So it adds a new folder. Every time I drag and drop one of those on, it's going to add a new Smart Material. That looks pretty nice. Okay, if I want to get rid of those, I can just hit delete to delete that Smart Material on that texture set. So I'm going to delete all those because I just wanted to test it. And I always kind of do that starting off just to make sure everything looks good. Before I get into making my own stuff, I just want to do a test. And actually the one I use majority of the time is I just use this machinery one because it really quickly you can tell how your unwrap looks, kind of how your whole object looks with this quick unwrap, or sorry, with this quick Smart Material applied. So I can just Control Z that. Okay, let's work on the crate here. So let's just look at, I'm gonna hit F to focus in on this. Let's just look at adding some more to the crate. So I have the crate pretty much ready to go here. So let's do some basics in Substance Painter. I'm going to trash this layer 1, and I'm just going to make a new fill layer. So add new fill layer. And this is just going to be my base color. So I'm just going to turn all these channels off. So this is just going to be a color channel. So you can see I can have a height, roughness, metalness, and normal map. So if I just turn on color, that's the only channel that I get. So it's just, this material just has color. So this fill layer just has base color. Okay. And mine's going to be probably, I'm going to stick with this bright super fire engine red for now. Is fine. So that's my base color. I can call this, red or base. So that's my base color for the crate. Now what we're going to do next is work with the method that, if you didn't go through the Lantern tutorial series, this is the method that they use in there. And this is the method that we're pretty much going to use for everything. And it's the power of Substance Painter because it's the procedurally generated materials in here, which is really, really cool, that have all the power within Substance Painter. And that's why we have to bake those mesh maps, because that's where all the power is generated. So let's see how to do that. So what I'm going to do is going to make another fill layer. And on this one, I'm not going to use the color. So you notice if I turn off the color channel, it turns off the color. I'm not going to use normal map, metalness, or the height channel. This is just going to be a roughness. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's just call this rough. You might see that rough spelling or just rough. But let's just do rough. This is the way we should do it. That other rough is really for creating roughs. But anyway, so this is rough. This is my roughness channel. Only active down here. Let's add some generators to this. But before we add a generator, let's add a mask. So we're going to work with masks in this. So I'm going to add a mask. I'm going to add a black mask to this. Okay, so nothing changed because I didn't really do anything. I just added a black mask. With that black mask selected, let's go to the little magic wand here, add effect, add generator. Now nothing happens because we didn't load a generator in yet, but if I click on the generator icon down here, this is the power of Substance. We have this dirt generator that actually generates dirt that will be applied to this object. By default, nothing's going to happen. Two things that we need to do here. If I go back to you can see actually, as I click on each one of these icons, this is context sensitive. So whichever icon I'm clicked on, it'll activate a different sub menu set down here. So the one that I want is this base one, and I want to turn up my roughness all the way. So I'm going to crank up the roughness. You can see actually positive or negative for that roughness. But if I do a value of 1, this actually starts to show up just a little bit. And if I hold down shift, I can actually move my light source. There we go. Now we can start to see this roughness a little bit. Let me zoom in. This is what's generated by this roughness mapping channel. If you don't turn this up by default, you're not going to see it. And basically the value of 0 or 1 just inverts that black and white selection. So I'm going to do a value of 1. I'm going to click back on my mask, black on back on my dirt generator. So this was a black mask. I'm back on my dirt generator. So the dirt generator is selected. Now I can change some of the aspects of this dirt. I can change the level. Really cool. The contrast, more or less. This one has a use triplanar. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but really I can just play with some of these other sliders. Grunge amount, the scale of the grunge. But this is procedurally generated. So it's not like I have to go paint this in Photoshop. This isn't hand painted. This is generated by these numerical values, which is really, really cool. I think it has, let me change that. That triplanar is not going to do anything. I think oh, here you go. The seed, I can change the random. You're pretty much, going to get different results every time you click that, which is pretty neat. So now I have some dirt generated on this. And really it's just what I'm basically doing is I'm creating a color palette that's not uniform anymore. So the color's not perfectly uniform, and that gives us a little bit more realism in there. So the other thing that I can do with this is if I'm still selected on this dirt, and actually as long as I'm in this sub layer set, I can add another fill. So you notice this fill is now under this main portion that we were working with. So it's under this roughness. It's not another fill like this. That's not what we're doing here. So it's within this same layer. It's another fill down there. So if I click on the word fill, I can actually click on grayscale here under fill, and let's look up some grunge textures here. So I don't know, let's do, there's grunge dirt, there's scratches. I don't know what's this one, grunge something, grunge dirt splats. Let's see what this looks like. So we can turn off the dirt that we were previously working with, and we can see which one's which now. So you can see the two variations of the dirt. So this is the new one that we're working with. I'm just going to hide this other one that was the procedural generated. But let's look at this dirt splats. The one thing that we do want to change pretty much every time in this is the projection method used for this. Inside of Substance Painter, we have a really great method for projection, and it's a triplanar projection method. And essentially, it's not going to matter on this one because you're not going to see any difference. But if you have a complex object, oh, you can see how nice that looks. A complex object, and you're getting some seams in there, and you can see the seams. This basically removes the seams. On my object here, though, you're probably not really seeing the seams because of the way this object is, because you can't really see those corners, and you might have variation within there. But let's just see on the planar projection. Yeah, that planar projection, you can see how bad that is. I think the default is just UV projection. So those are the UVs that I was working with. And you can see if I don't want that, I can use this triplanar projection method, which is really, really cool. And I can actually move that in real time, which is pretty cool. And that triplanar projection works pretty much every single time. I don't know that I've come in contact too many instances where the triplanar projection has not worked. But I can scale this up or down. You can see it's just a seamless texture there. So you can see it will repeat after a while. I can rotate this. So I think you can see some of the power here now. And it's very similar to Photoshop power that we were kind of previously working with. But then even with that, I can change the blend mode. So I can change the blend modes here, just like we have in Photoshop. So I can change the blending, and I can actually change the transparency or opacity of this layer. So this fill layer, this dirt, what am I on? Grunge dirt splats. And I'm revealing now more of just the dirt. And I know that that's happening because if I move this, you can kind of see it moving kind of behind there a little bit. So I could do paint effects and paint on this mask, or do another paint layer and do some painting if I wanted to. Remember, we have all of those fun brushes, so manually painting things. Usually that's saved for the end. So usually that's a smaller portion when working in Substance Painter. Majority of the time, even though it's called Substance Painter, majority of the time you're working with this. This is a smart material style of workflow. So we could continue with that, but this could be it. All I need for this smart material. I could do a little bit more if I wanted. There's more generators in there to play with. For example, let's add another layer. Let's do another roughness channel here. And this is where we start to stack these. Let's do another curve. Let's just call this rough. Rougher. Let's just do C rough. So this is just going to be another roughness channel. I can add another fill to this, but let's add another generator, or sorry, a mask first. Add black mask. And then we're going to do another generator. And we can see what other generators in there. There's not a ton of generators in here, but there is a curvature generator and a light generator. So the curvature generator is pretty neat because I can generate and work with just curved portions of this. And I can add this to a mask, which is really cool as well. But you can see, and it's kind of a little bit tricky to see on this one, but you can kind of see it happening. Hopefully it comes across in the video. But I can work with the curvature. And if we go back here, we'll see curvature. I can work with this layer kind of as a generator, which is pretty neat. So this is the mask that I'm actually working with. So that's kind of what I'm working with. So I can mask off portions of this to reveal more or less of what's underneath this. So how that could apply is, say this layer had a fill layer to it, and this fill layer was neon yellow. No, this fill layer was, whoops, I'm on base color. Let's go back to material. This fill layer was, this used to be maybe stainless steel, so it's a darker tone here. So it's just like this dark gray. That's almost like this steel painted one that we were working with before, because now the edges, basically what this does, it works with just the edges of the curvature, and I'm just revealing the mask underneath. And then I could go in and do that same kind of deal that I did before, where I could add under here, I could add another fill. I could use another one of those grunge maps. Ooh, that's getting wild. Okay. And I always want to try and use that triplanar projection. Just a much better method. That's getting funky. I don't know which one I clicked on for that. Grunge leaks. There you go. Grunge leaks within there. But really what I'm making is this mask. So I'm making a mask. So right now, this is what I'm working with. So I'm just going to layer these on top, on top, on top. That looks kind of cool. Now, if I want that to be maybe a little bit less, maybe it's a little bit too strong. Let me go back. That's a little bit not enough. I actually didn't accidentally hit X and deleted that on accident. Whoops, not that one. Wrong one. This is the one. I can take that down. So there's a lot that you can do with that. Looks pretty cool. And even if I wanted to brush on the mask, I can, draw on the mask as well, but that's not the method that we're taking right now. We're kind of using this procedurally generated method. And let's see what happens here. I'm going to drag this curvature up. Yeah. So if I drag that curvature up, now those scratches, you're not really going to see them too much, but let's manipulate that curvature again. Oh, you won't see those in this example. Yeah, those won't really show up in this example the way I kind of set this up. I'd have to change that blend mode, maybe to multiply. There we go. Now you're just seeing a little bit of this curvature. Okay. Which that's more what I was looking for. Cool. So I think you can see that workflow. Now if I wanted this to be a smart material, I can just select all these, put these in a folder. Whoa. Select all these and just do Control G to group those. I don't think it'll let you hit the folder icon to group that. No, it just makes a folder. So just select all of these. Do, is it just G? No, it's Control G. Now these are all in their own folder. And I could do JMM. Let's call this crate material. Sorry, my recording software stopped there, so I'm back. I think this is where we were. So, smart materials. I've actually already made this one. Let me just delete this. I don't think we made this in the previous one, but I'm just going to name this JMM. Make sure, I don't know what shortcut stopped this. I'm going to do it. And then it's called this crate material. And then what I can do, you'd think you could drag and drop this in here, but you can't. I don't know if there's a way to enable that, but you have to right click and do create smart material. And now I just made my own smart material. I can drag and drop this now on my objects, and it's my JMM smart material. And I always put my initials on there because then it makes it really easy to find. If I'm looking for something I've created, I just do JMM, and then I can find that. But I can drag and drop this all over my crate now. And this is a smart procedurally generated material, so I can change anything really quickly. So for example, if I want, the pipe up and down for this to be dark, I can make it dark. Done. I can change the roughness. If I was like, oh, the dirt on that needed to be different, or the contrast needed to be higher. What am I on? For the splats there, whoops, or the scale, rotation, anything. I can change all of that. And it's changing there. Hardness, all of these can be changed. But for now, I think you get the idea. That's kind of the power of the smart material here. So let's set this up to export. I'm going to save my project actually while I'm there. And let's export the textures. So this is already going to the folder I want it to. So make sure it's going where you want it to go. And let's just do export. Okay, those are pretty much exported. Let's take a peek at those. So mine are all exported, ready to go. You will notice that in some of these, the height map, metallic, and normal have no data. The only data that I have is base color. And then over top of that base color is the roughness. Okay, so the reason that happened is because when I created this smart material, the only channels that I was using were color on base layer 1. Whoops. I was using color. I accidentally left all those on. Turn those off. I was only using color. I accidentally forgot to turn all those off if I didn't previously. But I was only using color on that. Oh, that's an extra layer. No. Yeah, there we go. So sorry, on my base layer, I was only using color. And on the rest of these, just roughness. And actually on this one, I was using roughness and color. But I can turn that off and see, kind of the result that I get from that. So I didn't have a layer that had anything to do with metallicness. Metallicness? The metallic channel. So you can see if I change that metallic, actually it's not going to do much on this one, but let's go to the crate and let's look at the base, maybe the base. There we go. Now you can see if I wanted to use that metallic layer, that metal channel, struggling there. I can use the height. So we can play with some of these other ones. We're going to play with some of those other ones later, but this was just my simple example. And there is the normal mapping channel that you can work with as well. And those are under, there are not brushes, those are hard surfaces. So you can, some of these normals you can see you can actually put on your object as well. For my purposes, we didn't do that for this demo. Okay, so those are exported, ready to go. Let's go back to Maya. Make sure I'm still recording. I actually just did this and then I wasn't recording, so that was unfortunate. And what I want to do is export a snapshot of the crate, just so I can open this up. And let's change this to green, actually. So I can open this up in Photoshop. So then I'm going to open up Photoshop. And I need to find that crate image that I just snapshotted. Snapshotted, is that word? Snapshotted. I think this is it. Nope, that's my reference. So there's my original reference. And this is kind of where I ended up. I do need to do some more rust, because now that I'm looking at my reference there, I don't have any rust on this. I need some like real big rust portions. And maybe that blue, and this one has some texture on the top, but I think you get the idea. Where did I snapshot that? Sorry, I'm just trying to find my UV snapshot. Got it. Do a new file. Oop, not in this file. Struggling now. Was doing good. Okay, now I'm good. Call this UV template. Do a new layer. Let's call this background so I can see what's happening. And move that background down. And then lock both of these. Padlock. Boom. And then now we can pull in, which is cool. This is what we're working with. So this is what was created out of Substance Painter. This is the color. And you can see that in the color map here, some of these items kind of show up. Where's my roughness for my crate? This is my roughness map, I believe. Whoops, did that not center? Accidentally dropped that, not centered. But you can see this was the roughness created. And it's actually based off some of that, actually all of those mesh maps that we baked is what this information is based off of. And you can see I can actually look at that almost like it is. I'm not sure what blend mode is used. Let me just cycle through these really quick. Mine looked, oh, that's kind of cool. Sorry, I think here we are. Overlay, it looks like the overlay blend mode is pretty darn close to what that would look like. So I was just kind of playing with that, but you can see that this is what's generated. So if we can still work with these are just flat texture maps we can still work with this, even though this is a color channel. We could add to this in here if we wanted to too. So even if we had, you know, I don't know, let's just go with the brush tool. Sorry about that. Letting me know that it's not okay to do that. Okay, let's just do a brush. Maybe. I'm just going to go with one of these basic brushes just as a test. So if I wanted to brush hand paint, I could hand paint. Don't forget, I can hand paint in Substance Painter. But if I had a logo or something I wanted to add, I could add that in Substance Painter as well. But I just want to show you what some of this can do. Not that I would do it just like this, because that looks kind of funky. But let's just put this a blend mode on there. It's kind of, so I just did a blend mode. Actually, you're not even going to see any of this. That's nothing right there. So there's only a few lightened portions there. But this is, I could save this out now. So the variation, I just added this manually within Photoshop. This is not procedurally generated. The other portion, all of this is procedurally generated. Everything that we did in Substance, I didn't have to paint any of that. So you can see how much time that saves by using Substance Painter and doing that procedurally generated process. But the results essentially are going to be the same. So if you can't get Substance Painter to run, it's not a big deal because you can do all the same stuff in Photoshop. Okay, so that's kind of what I was getting at there. Now, if we wanted to plug that back into Maya, that's actually not what this video is about, but if I wanted to plug that back into Maya, I would do that process for plugging this into Maya and basically finishing off this render. But, you know, we're not doing that now, but we can do it for a couple of them. If I just go to assign new material, I'll just do one of these. Arnold shader, AI standard surface. I don't have to plug all of these in because I only have a color. File, folder, create, base color. That's good. Open. Turn on my texture. There we go. And I could save that texture that I was playing with out of Photoshop too, if I wanted to save that texture out of Photoshop. And this red and this red are not related. This is that color that I was working with before, so we're just looking at this. Okay. And then if I click back on this, that AI standard surface that I was working with, we don't have anything in the metalness, so I don't even need to plug that in, but I can plug in my roughness. I don't really need to do the other ones because there's nothing in there. That'd be kind of a waste of time to plug those in because there's no data in them. Like if we look, there's no data in there. No data, no data. You don't need to plug those in if you didn't use them. Okay, so that's plugged into roughness. And there, that's the material that I created. Now plugged in and ready to go. Now, if we go back to Photoshop's, okay, and say we wanted to put some text on here or something. You can do texts in Substance Painter too. Whatever, lorem ipsum, it's fine. This is going to be right across the top there. Let's save this out now. I'll turn off the template though. There we go. I'm just going to save this as a JPEG. Main, and I'm just going to put version 2. Okay, see what happens here. Actually, I could have done something cooler with that, but oh well. I think you get the idea. Let's do something like this. There we go. Put some texture in it. Okay, and then maybe I'll just do a mask on it really quick. This is bonus. We did this before, but let's just wipe out some of that. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, let's save this back out. JPEG. And if these JPEGs aren't high enough quality, you can start to use PNGs. Those are a little better quality, but for now, I think the JPEGs are fine. And let's go ahead and load that in to the color channel here. This is my new one, my version 2. Hopefully I saved that in the right spot. I didn't. Let me resave that out. Yep, nope, not in the right spot. Struggling with my saving in the right spot today. So I do want to make sure not. And then I'm saving JPEG 2000s. Actually, that's the rest of those are PNGs. Let's just go ahead and save this as PNG. For PNG, you're going to get it's a little better quality. So we can kind of stop using the JPEGs and we can start using PNGs. And you can see largest file size, that's fine. It doesn't come up anymore with the PNG 24, but oh well. So let's load this into the color channel now. Should see base color main 1. And I should have renamed that properly. It should have been base color in there as well. But you can see there's my new text. And it's the same thing that we pulled into Substance, but now I added a little bit extra in Photoshop, just manually. So you can, and this kind of wraps around the object now, that text layer wraps around my object in this instance. So it's not like we can't do the same things that we were doing. Basically, what we're getting out of Substance is just a more complete texture set. So we're not only are we getting the base color, we're getting a height map, metallic, normal mapping. So you get that whole everything. But that doesn't mean you can't go back in and make some changes yourself. All right. So Photoshop, if Photoshop's all you got, trust me, Photoshop's good enough. So if I'm done with this, I would save it. But obviously, I have a little bit more work to do to apply those to the rest of this. You can see there. But that's not going to take too long because it's just those last few steps. So hopefully this helps out with getting, modeling something, creating it in Maya, throwing it over to Substance, applying some textures, some smart materials to it, and then taking those smart materials possibly into Photoshop and making some adjustments. All right, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.